You're listening to Period Story, the podcast where we get behind some of the myths and misconceptions about periods. We chat with women about their period story, their first period, and their journey ever since, and we open up a conversation to help break taboos and stigmas around menstruation. I'm your host, Lanice Brothers. I'm a registered nutritionist, women's health, hormone, and menstrual cycle coach, and the founder of Eat, Love, Move, a nutrition and well-being practice. Welcome to today's guest. On today's episode, we have Kat Horrocks, a women's life coach and host of the Put Yourself First podcast. She believes it's time for you to start putting yourself first and achieving your goals. Her work offers one-to-one coaching and online resources to help provide you with practical and emotional support to do just that. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So let's start off by getting into the story of your first period. Can you share with us what happened?
Yeah, and I really had to think back to this because I'm sure, like many women, being asked this question, you're like, oh, that was a long time ago. But I do remember being at home and I think I just went for a wee. I went to the toilet and my mum was, around the house, luckily. And I, just wiped myself and there was blood. And I was like, oh, I knew what it was. I knew that it was a thing. So I just remember opening the bathroom door and saying, Mom, I think I've started my period. So yeah, I was quite lucky that I was at home, I was comfortable, and my mum was there to help me.
How old were you?
I was quite young. I think I was 10.
10 years old. Okay. And were you the first of your friends to get your period?
Yeah.
And so how do you think that affected how your education around your period and menstrual health and the conversations that you had with your friends about it?
Yeah, so I would say it was a very different experience being at home versus being at school. At school, I felt a bit like an alien, or not an alien in the sense that I was treated negatively, but obviously for all the other girls, it was like a mystery and they were, oh my God, like this has happened to you. It was just such like a new world for them to even imagine. So yeah, I had a lot of, girls, and we can get onto other like school period stories, I'm sure, but I did have a lot of girls like circling me at playtime and like asking, oh, what's it like? Like, so have you got like something in your knickers? Like, what is that? How does it work? And yeah, it was, as a kid, I was quite shy. So it was definitely awkward. But luckily at home, it was completely a conversation. It had always been a conversation, and my mum is amazing. So she always made me feel, she said, this is normal, this is healthy, every woman experiences this, so never feel embarrassed about it or never feel like it's a shameful thing.
So you were educating your friends and then you were getting this education from your mum. So when your friends got their periods, did they come to you for advice?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, just because I was obviously the first in my friendship groups. So over the next sort of few years, 5 years or so, some people, they came and asked me about it. And to be honest, friends, like I still speak to friends about it now, just because even as adult women, we don't often talk about it. And I think you always have that friend who you can go to and ask the most TMI questions. So a lot of my friends still now to this day are like, what's a moon cup? How does that even work? Like, how do you put it in? So yeah, I've always been very like, I'm just happy to chat to friends about it, yeah.
So you're kind of like the period expert amongst your group of friends.
I wouldn't say expert, but more just, I've never been embarrassed about it, so I'm always happy to have a conversation about it, yeah.
And so getting your period that young, do you feel like that affected your knowledge of your period, and did it change the way you thought about your body?
I don't think so, to be honest. And I do think, again, my mum is getting a lot of airtime in this chat just because she is genuinely has been so amazing about it. So I always knew that it was normal, and I almost knew that it was going to happen, and had that education at home before it happened. I think it was interesting in terms of obviously being one of the earlier developers at school. That was an interesting shift in my relationship with my body, because it was also around that time that, of course, I got my period, but then my boobs grew a lot. So I had like the biggest boobs in my year group. And then obviously that meant that, you know, unfortunately, like I got unwanted attention from boys, and that definitely shifted. It was like, that was probably the year where I went from feeling just like a regular kid to feeling like, oh, my body is this, you know, different thing now. Like I'm, you know, not only growing into a woman, but what the sort of implications of that meant in terms of how people viewed me and acted around me.
You said you got unwanted attention. How did you deal with that?
Not very well, because I was so young, and I didn't know what that meant, what it was, whether it was anything, you know, serious. Well, it was never anything serious. I do feel like I should say that, but yeah, I didn't even have the vocabulary to say, oh, I don't want you to do that, or I don't think you should do that, because when you're a young kid, it's almost like kids don't have any boundaries, do they? They just play, and there's no reason behind it. So yeah, it was interesting. So I don't think I really dealt with it, but I would say it took maybe more into high school. That was when my confidence developed a bit more, and I was able to, you know, stand up for myself. And obviously that at that point other girls were experiencing it too, so I probably dealt with it by speaking to other girls about it, and, you know, all of us sort of saying, yeah, that's really that boy's really horrible, or don't go near him, or don't speak to him.
Yeah. So having got your period so young, and having made that transition from, I guess we can call it transitioning from a girl to not necessarily a woman, but a young woman. It seems so weird to say it, you know, talk about a 10-year-old in that way. How do you feel about your period now?
I love it. so much so that I was on hormonal contraception a few years ago, and honestly, one of the big reasons that made me want to come off it was that I didn't have my period. So I had the hormonal contraceptive implant. So a lot of girls experience just not having periods at all when they have that in. And I think it's because it's a progesterone only one, and you don't have a break like you would if you were taking a pill. So you don't even have like a withdrawal bleed. And I genuinely was questioning, like, oh, so I've not bled at all in years. Will my period come back like when I take this out? And I actually missed that cycle. I felt like, I don't want to say I felt like less of a woman, but I did miss my period in a way. I know that sounds really odd to some women who really struggle with their period, but I just feel like my body is so much healthier now that I'm having my period. So yeah, I do really love it because of what it means.
So what does it mean to you?
So for me right now, it obviously means that my body is healthy and operating in a natural way, and that's obviously because I'm not taking hormonal contraception. But even just the, like, what your hormones do for your body. I think a lot of people underestimate how powerful hormones are and how much they affect. So being able to work with that and work with my cycle to know that I'm looking after my physical health, I'm looking after my mental health and all these other areas, my period is kind of a real marker of where I'm at physically and mentally, which I really like. I feel like I could, because I know it so well now, I can work with it and it tells me things, if that makes sense.
So what sort of things does it tell you?
So what I'm learning is if I've had a stressful month, my period is going to be horrible. And having that horrible period is enough to be like, okay, something needs to change here. I need to make sure I'm, I meditate a lot more now, making sure my diet is on point. I think, basic things like water, enough vegetables, fibre, all that kind of stuff. So that definitely affects it. I also think sleep is huge for me. So again, I notice that my mood and my mental health is worse, particularly around my PMS, when I've not slept. So it's all those little things that keeps me on track and keeps me in check to make sure I'm looking after myself. Yeah.
You seem to be really aware of what's going on with your body, what's going on in different parts of your menstrual cycle. How did you learn about all of this?
Honestly, through the internet. I think I of course had a basic understanding of my period and my cycle through school, but I'm sure many of us can agree that it is very basic and we don't really learn about what hormones do, different types of hormones, how that affects, like how they fluctuate throughout our cycle. So when I had this revelation that I wanted a period again, I wanted to feel quote unquote normal, I went on this journey to research and learn, and I stumbled across the fertility awareness community, which I don't actually use myself, but that was so valuable to me because these are women who track their cycle and know the ins and outs of their hormones almost every single day, down to really specific things in terms of the changes in their body and all that kind of stuff. So I just dove in. Like I'm a bit of a geek anyway when it comes to a new topic that I'm passionate about. So I just Googled, I listened to, I know that sounds bad when it comes to health, but I just listened to so many podcasts. I read so many books. I bought that book, Taking Charge of Your Fertility, even though I actually don't want kids, but I just wanted to learn about my fertility and what it means and how it works. So yeah, I would say that was a huge revelation and education for me.
That's so interesting what you said about wanting to learn about your fertility, but not wanting kids. Because what I see, and also from my own personal experience, is that I only started learning about my menstrual cycle and ovulation and all of that in more detail once my husband and I decided that we were going to have a baby, or we were going to try to have a baby. And then this whole world opened up for me. So hearing you talk about wanting to learn more about your fertility, but not in the context of trying for a baby is so interesting. And I think there's a lot of power, as you talked about, in knowing about your menstrual cycle and almost divorcing it from this concept of having a baby, because it's much more than that.
Absolutely. I mean, like I've said, my hormones speak to me, and my cycle tells me so much about where I'm at in terms of my health and well-being, how much I'm taking care of myself. And yeah, it is a lot deeper than just like, I know it's the modern day, but it's still seen as, it's still seen as this one thing with this one specific outcome, which is you're a woman, you have a period so that you can have a baby. But I think when you look below the surface of that, it's so much more powerful.